Yeah, hi, and welcome everybody to our podcast, okay, where we're talking to somebody today who is really going to, I think, give us a good insight into what's going on. Well, certainly in the USA, right? So, Joyce Louise Kilbrew, I take it, is it?
Yes, it is
Yeah,
Joyce.
brilliant. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Joyce, I have to say. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into writing? What made you sort of start this?
I'm an educator, and I wrote my autobiography. I'm a love child. Don't call me bastard. And it was a pretty good autobiography. But of course, you know, an unknown is an obscure person. Is I was writing basically for therapy for me,
Uh,
and it was very good because I did find my ancestors. I'm related to an Englishman, which I happen to be majoring in English and calling myself a Britanologist because I only studies England. And that's what I was doing. And, you know, I always knew my father, but I had to go to court in Prince George's County, Orphans Court, because I'm very determined and I don't let anyone get away with anything. And in this book, I even wrote a poem in response to Michael Jackson, who sang, you know, um, the poem about the parent who couldn't find the child up.
right.
I forgot the name of the poem, but he sang Billie Jean, and I wrote a poem and told him I wrote another poem in this book called Baby's Mama, and I said, "Stop your lying and your lying and denying because you left your DNA behind." And I thought that was a very nice poem. And
That's
I got
brilliant.
into writing because I was writing for my students at John Francis Junior High School. Um, I'm a retired educator and I taught for 44 years. I thought it was about time for me to retire.
Do you know what? After 44 years of teaching or in education, yeah, I guess, yes, you deserve it, right?
And this book, I think, is a very good book because two of my influences, Maya Angelou and William Shakespeare, of course, the Bard, because I was in classes with a lot of females and they were droning over William Shakespeare while I was sort of giggling because, you know, he's one of my heroes. And I even wrote a poem in this book about a lot of things, my personal things, while I was attending Trinity Washington University in DC. But my favorite school of all was Federal City College, which was thrown together after the riots in
Mm.
Washington, D.C. And I was going through a lot of different mutability stages. And, you know, I just began writing because writing is very, very, very important. And through writing, I can express myself and influence students. I also did I was a pioneering educator for the Do the Right Thing essay contest after the Iranian Iraqi war. And the Kuwait Embassy and Dr. Mohammed El Sabah gave the American schools money because they were so grateful that America had helped them out because they didn't have a military. And so they treated us very exceedingly well. And the ambassador was, let's say, exceedingly kind. And I like that because I like kind people. I'm a VNP, very nice person. It's best to be a VNP rather than a VIP. Thank you.
Right. As long as no one crosses you, though, right?
Repeat that, Chris.
As long as no one crosses you.
I'm sort of nice when people cross me at times, but you know, my students taught me everything I know, and they were such great teachers because I taught students from all over the world, including a few from Sidwell Friends who tried to debase me, maybe. But like I said, not Joyce Louise Kilbrew.
Hmm. Absolutely. No, I can see that. So, yeah, I mean, basically, now hopefully I'm going to pronounce this correctly. It's Pagasa for America, right? Our native land, the USA.
My husband, my late husband, Mac Lawrence Killebrew, wrote a proclamation, and I compiled it after his death. And Mac Lawrence Killebrew was extremely loving to his country because he felt that America had given him an opportunity. But with me being a lot younger, I didn't think as much of some of the things that America had done because I'm an avid reader. And after reading so much, it really sort of hurt me because I know that Black Americans fought in every war in this country. But Pagasa says, which is Tagalog, the Filipino language, because I taught those kids who came from all over the world, and they taught me more than any adult could ever teach me. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Joy Lecrae and Umar Johnson. My niece took me to see Umar Johnson when he came to Baltimore. He was one of the few school psychologists, and they were talking about education in American schools. I'm a very creative person, and I like being creative, and I like being a very nice person. Um, and I don't like to boast, but I must say that I'm learning, still learning, because I'm a lifelong learner. And I think America has such a gift because this is one of the only countries that has a constitution. But oftentimes we have not lived up to the creeds in the Constitution. And being a very nice person and a Britanologist, and that's not saying I think I'm British because I'm 64.5% sub Saharan African, and I never give up. And I think I was taught that courage by my family. We weren't wealthy, but we had a wealth of love. And I think love is the greatest and the most wonderful emotion that anyone could have. And I love America, but I don't love everything America has done, especially to people of African American descent. And I said, Je suis American, because I'm American. But I do have a very fondness for my heritage, a very fondness. And I think I want to thank all the teachers of Federal City College, the white ones, the black ones, the Asians, and even a young lady who had to go back to uh, India because Pakistan and India were dividing during that time. And I was waiting for my grade in literary criticism. But I thank God she left me my grade, so I was able to graduate after the 4 years. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, that would have been interesting, wouldn't it?
Are you
Not being able
bringing?
to graduate after that.
Yes, I graduated in 4 years,
Yeah,
and
excellent.
you know,
It sounds
I'm,
like a journey. Most definitely. I think that's what it is, isn't it? So, what exactly inspired you then to write Pagasa for America, our native land, the USA? You say it was your late husband who's kind of inspired you, and obviously your children and your students. Is there anything else that made you sort of look at that?
well, I had compiled a proclamation. I'm creative, so I knew some things should be changed. I felt that Abraham Lincoln, who did all that he could do, his proclamation was sort of quasi because it didn't fulfill all of the dreams that Americans should have. America is the greatest country on this planet, and yet and still we are two nations, like Andrew Hatcher said in his books. In his book. So I feel America can do a little better. We can all become a true nation, and that is why Pagasa, which means hope, and I like to hope. I even taught my kids hope because Dr. Don Cameron and his wife, Mrs. Cameron, gave me $500 for 5 years. I took the children all over downtown. We went everywhere, and I was able to even watch movies like The Horse Whisperer, and I saw what true love and inspiration can do for children. And many of the children went on to colleges and everything, and that's why I was chosen to do the right thing essay contest because I'm creative, I'm kind, and I'm wishful that America will do all of it can. And I did resent the fact that there were hidden black codes against African Americans. I was astonished at some of the things I learned. And in Pagasa, I even asked former President Bill Clinton, do you know who has saved you, who has saved your heart? You know, I said, you're lying in the hospital comfortable in your bed. Do you know that a black man who was not a doctor, Vivian Thomas, who had been assigned, he had only had a high school education, brilliant, but yet America wants to say black people are stupid bouffants. No, it's not true. So Vivian Thomas was hired as a library technician at Johns Hopkins University. Had he been white, they would have paid for him to go to college. But he was working with Dr. Blaylock and another educator and saving millions of people's hearts all over the world, even today. And yet, all of these things were not put in history books. I learned so much from my students who were from everywhere. I even learned a few words in Tagalog, a few words in Spanish, but I did take a couple of Spanish courses. Of course, I had taken French all the way through school and studied Latin. And even as a seventh grader, I went back to try to study some African American history, and I found no evidence that we had ever done anything. And I followed J.A. Rogers, one of the greatest black men I've ever known of. He went in all of the vaults of Europe, and he found so many interesting things and so many interesting people. I did not know that Vivian Thomas worked on the heart and even was working with Dr. Blaylock. And he was so poor or didn't have enough money that he had to serve all of these white doctors alcohol or served as a butler, or not a butler, but
like a waiter or something.
Yeah, a waiter at these parties that they were holding. You know, all of the wealthy doctors, they got very wealthy, and he wanted to go back to school, but he couldn't go. And I struggled myself for an education, so I know what that's like.
Mm. So do you think that, I mean, obviously there are some things that, I'm not going to understand from your point of view, okay, because of your lived experience. So we understand this, right? But, it seems that there are so many inequities going around, and you're starting to highlight them, which is great. So tell us some other things, because, let's put the spotlight onto this.
Well, I also thought about Gladys Mae West, and I said everybody's heard about that beautiful white actress Mae West, who was so good. You know, she always said goodness has nothing to do with this child. But Mae West is well known, but Gladys Mae West is totally forgotten. Yet men like you and men like my friend, a friend of mine who was taking me somewhere yesterday, and he didn't have a GPS in his car. But Gladys Mae West, she is the one that created the GSP. And she was talking with Sam Smith. Now, Sam Smith is in Eyes on the Prize. And Mr. Smith, I interned under Mr. Smith. And I said, the woman who was writing this Pagasa for America was the one that Sam Smith trained. Sam Smith also was the person who got my mother a job because he gave me the paper while I was in college. They were training nurses assistants, and my mom got a job through Sam Smith. And I asked him, I said, you got my mother a job. He said, I didn't know that, but he did. So I've been blessed to be around people of all races, colors, and creeds. And I've always been treated well because I expected and I demanded. A young boy came from Sidwell Friends. He had failed English, and he was trying to debase me, I assume. But I told him, not this one. I'm Sister Soldier. You don't do that. So I really have had a very interesting life. In fact, I put it on Google. I've lived a fairy tale life. I was Cinderella, but I went to the ball because when the Kuwait embassy failed to give me my invitation after inviting teachers from all over the United States who had won finalists, and I had two finalists. The second finalist, when I didn't go to the first ball, I wrote to the embassy of Kuwait and said, "Wait a minute, why can't I come to the hotel and stay in the hotel and go to this ball?" And they let me come to the ball, and I was there, and I appreciate that.
Mm. Wow, good. Yeah. I mean, it sounds strange, to think that you're saying that race had something to do with that, right? Which is, well, wow, amazing. Nowadays that still happens. I would think that, but I know it does. Obviously, it must do, right? So why did you, look at Pagasa and use that really as meaning hope? Why did you choose that as the central theme of the book? Then hope.
Because there's always hope. Hope springs eternal in
Mm.
every. I started reading at 3 years old. Really, I started teaching at three. And finally I did get my genealogy, and I found out I've come from a family on my father's side, which I didn't know as much about it, but I always knew they were a little bit, had a little less melanin in their skins, which meant they were a little lighter than my family that I grew up with, which was Lottie and Joseph Carey, Lottie and Joseph Carey Brown, my grandfather, and he was like the essence of um, truth to me. And I remember the song when I participated in the March on Washington in 1963,
Yeah.
that when I heard Peter, Paul, and Mary singing, "How many times can a man look down and pretend that he just doesn't see?" So I looked at my grandfather because I'm very, very observant. And I saw that he was looking down. And I didn't like that at all because to me, he was a God. And so I retained all of these things. And, I've listened to Whitney Houston singing, about "You can't take away my dignity." And I swore that no person would ever take away my dignity as long as I have hope. And I have hope for a future of America. And I see America as this bird, it's this dove that's rising. And America will become even greater. And I've been studying American people. Americans are good, but oftentimes they are not following this Constitution that they did make. It was
Mm.
ratified in 1807. So, being ratified in 1807, why on earth did Black people have to struggle so hard to vote? And I knew, and I did bring it out, that Blacks were intended to be to be held in perpetual slavery. And the hidden Black codes that we even refer to today, because I saw it on Sherry Shepard's, I think, show about the HBCs. They were calling the HBCs colleges, historically Black colleges, but that was not the original of the HBCs. The HBCs were the hidden Black codes, and it was designed to keep men into perpetual slavery. Black people, not only Black people, even held in that the Italians, some of them were darker because of the Moors, who had conquered Spain. And they went to, when they started hanging a few Italians, lynching them, the Italian people said, "You kill any more Italians, we're going to have a war with the United States." They ceased to lynch these Italian people. And also the Irish people
Mm.
were treated very, very inferior. And these things have to be corrected because now the Most High did not create us to treat each other like dogs. And this is what has happened. And I'm even opposed to the word dog being used, even as someone is, I call this person Mr. Snoop. He's a rapper that I've learned a lot from. I've really learned a lot from him because he knows how to make himself shine. He's a good rapper. And we English teachers hated rappers at one time. Dolores, Miss Dolores, I forgot her last name, but she was talking about the things that they said, and she was sort of upper class black female, and she didn't like the way the rappers were using these terms and everything like that. But
Mm.
America is always a country that has given immigrants from all over the world Pagasa or hope. Yet and still, they've all been mistreated. The Japanese, we know what happened to them.
Yeah.
The Chinese, we know what happened to them. The Filipinos, and every race on this earth. But America has been a haven for most of these people. If they could come over here and work, and they worked very, very hard to get where they got. And that's why America is beloved all over the world. We don't want to lose that hope. We want to keep it going because America is a great country and we don't want to see it fall. We want to see America rise like this dove. Pagasa for America.
No, absolutely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Yes, there are problems everywhere in the world, right? I mean, when you look back at how immigrants were treated, not too long ago, as you say, right? It is amazing to think that America's moved on so much in at least some ways, right? But what messages then do you want your readers to take away after finishing the book?
I want Americans to know that there should be, we should all have the audacity of hope, respect, and justice for all. Uh, the Native Americans. I've recently started reading the history of the Native Americans because I took a voyeur's course in the system, and it had painted like they had done the African Americans. It had painted the voyeur's program had painted like the natives were treated in Iceland and stuff. They took all of the malice out of how they had been treated, which was very, very poorly.
Mm.
And still, I've been reading about Native American women who've been assaulted and even murdered, and sort of nothing is done. So I'm still learning because I'm a lifelong learner. And I just want America to have the hope that I did to leave home at 16 and still come out and work with children and send many, many children to colleges. Even when we had the Queen Leah pageant in Prince George's County, and the former executive officer of Prince George's County, Jack Johnson, contributed to the winner. And we just like to do things that'll help our communities. And also some wonderful people in Prince George's County, like Steve and Ann White, who were community leaders. And I learned so much from Mr. Steve and Ann White. And just community people having all kinds of sessions. And I'll tell you truthfully, I'm very, very grateful for the educators at Trinity Washington University, especially the late Sister Bosler, who helped me with my thesis when I wrote my thesis, and just a whole lot of people, white, Pakistanians, who read some of the things that I did when I did Queen Leah, because I audio taped my books. And I am having trouble with a very huge company that has sort of messed up my writing career, and that's Amazon, because they did not sort of put my books so that I could get a hold of it. Because I did write another book about the debt crisis here in America. And I call that book Expose Neo Slavery in the United States of America, and insiders critique and analysis of how the private student loan crisis is hurting Americans. Because when you pull anyone down, as Jesse Jackson said, you should not look down on any man. And I give that salute and shout out to the late Jesse Jackson, whom I used to go all over the country with because he was always having, learning sessions. And even when President Clinton invited me to his inauguration in Little Rock, which I was afraid to go at first, but I did finally go. And he was there, and he took a picture with my friend Selena Horace Huffman, who's from Liberia, because I've associated with so many people from so many different cultures. And I just think people are the greatest things, are the greatest creations of God. And I just love people. I'm a friend of Aramis. I even loved King Henry VIII because he had such rock style. He was flamboyant. And he did a lot of things to some of his wives, but sometimes it happens. I don't like that. But I think people are great, and they could even be even greater if they would stop being so antagonistic toward each other. And it's happened in every race. The Native Americans fought against each other. The Africans fought against each other. The whites fought against everybody. And so, life is life. But I really think people are great.
Well, you can tell you do because look how your personal life has influenced your work. You're getting invitations to all of these places. You've been to all of these places. What, a few minutes ago, you mentioned the March to Washington in '63. Tell us about that.
Well, I was afraid to go there. I was young, impressionable, and they were having the buses. You could go and you can get on the buses and everything. They had certain meeting places, and everyone was a little afraid because this was a great march on Washington. I really paid more attention to Peter, Paul, and Mary because of that personal thing about my grandfather, who I thought was a king. And it seems that somehow I always thought that there was greatness in royalty because when Queen Elizabeth came to America in 2007, I held the annual Queen Leah Literary Achievement Competition. And I wanted to show young girls like myself that we must respect ourselves. And that's one thing that I'm totally interested in because I know that Black women are the original people on this earth. We're the alpha people. And that we must show respect for ourselves as well as others. And a few people will classify you as um, bougie or whatever. And I said, you don't need to worry about bougie people because bougies were only the tradesmen and they were held in low class esteem in England. And I do know a lot about English history because the main people in the English history who were well looked upon were the aristocracy. And, above that, the monarchy. And I did watch Queen Elizabeth's funeral. And I thought, what preciseness. The British people are so precise. That funeral was very, very, a very good tribute. And I did in this poem, I wrote a little poem about Lilibet. And I said, a princess she'll always be. And I talked about how her mother and father came to be. And, even my ancestry, starting with John Cosby IV, born in the 17th, 16th century, was married to Sarah Cosby, and cohabitated with his slave, Maria. And I even asked my genealogist, I said, are you sure her name was Maria? Because I know the differences in names, like a African American woman was called Annie, like Annie Mae, and a white woman was called Miss Ann. And, I know about like if you were a weaver, that meant your father was a weaver. If you were a robber's son, you were the son of a robber's son. Because I love to study and I think to learn. And one of the best things I think I did for my students at Francis Junior High School and all the other schools that I worked in, you must write. Every profession, every job is going to require some form of writing. That's why I named this book Every Poet. Every poem needs a creative poet. I love Shakespeare. He's one of my heroes,
Yeah.
Shakespeare. And I also love Christopher Marlowe and a whole heap. And I also wrote the book Disconnect, Reconnect because I love writing and I love people. And I think we should all bring back the love. We are the world. That's for Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we going to do to this world? Are we going to destroy it? And I did write one thing that I sort of got looked down upon for. I wrote about some robots, and they were all beautiful. They were beautiful whites, beautiful blacks, beautiful Asians, but they were not real. They were all AIs. And when I wrote it, someone said, I called it the end. and it got a little misconceptions. But I think I see things that have not happened. I do believe I have extrasensory perception.
That helps.
It does. It
Yeah.
because I will tell you something, Chris. I wrote a book called Queen Leah, an African American fairy tale. Now, my aunt, Miss Lula, and her husband, Simeon Misiski or something, I don't know how to say his last name, they live in Kenya. When I wrote Queen Leah, an African American fairy tale, it's clearly stated that the first Black president would be of Kenyan and American ancestry.
Mhm.
And I wrote that book in 2005. Well, in 2008, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama were moving into the White House. And I even wrote a letter to Michelle Obama, and in the heading I addressed, I said, Future First Lady Michelle Obama. But then I got to the salutation, and I said, Dear Michelle, because she was as unknown as I am at that time. Now she's very well known. But
Sure.
America must have Pagasa. We must all have hope. And so many people are complaining now. But having studied England so much, I never, ever talk about the leaders of any country. I pray for them because my husband was born during the Titanic. When the Titanic sank, I do not want to see America sink. I want to see America rise. I want to see America be all that its proclamation proclaimed it was. There is hope and Pagasa for America, and hope and Pagasa for Americans, and hope and Pagasa for you. Thank you, Chris.
No, no, not at all, not at all. So I mean, just think is your audience for the book then? I mean, is it everybody, or are you sort of educating people who don't know anything about their own sort of history and their own agendas? Really, I mean, who is it that you're after with the book, or trying to help anyway?
I'm going to give you the basic person that has authored me, and that's Jesus Christ, and our Lord and Savior. And sometimes I wake up and I feel things and I see things, and it seems to me I don't know where these ideas are coming from or who is sending them to me, but I know they're good with good intentions. And I just thank God that uh, at just a year ago, and I don't like to say my age, but it's old as the hill, and and it was just last in 2004 that I proved through my genealogical report who my daddy was. And, my life has been nice. It's been a real fairy tale because my husband was so much older than I am. And I really, truly dedicate a portion of my knowledge to my husband, the late Sergeant Mac Lawrence Killebrew, who inspired me. He was my inspiration, my sunshine, my light, and my lover. And so I feel that all people should be loved because it's the greatest and most wonderful emotion on this earth. And I see all races as basically a little savagery. It's like everything is a game and everything is, let's say, people are killing each other over money. The kids in the schools shooting up the schools. And I talked about that in Pagasa because I write freedom of expression books. I'm tired of Ibid and all that classical stuff that I had to do to get out of English. And, you know, all of that stuff where you have to use everybody else's ideas. When to be creative, you must use your own ideas. You must use your own thoughts. And as Black people, we have not read enough. And almost to tell a Black kid to write a paragraph is like telling them to go and just read 10 books. I used to have all kinds of strategies to make my children actually study. They had to keep their own record sheets. They had to know that the dictionary was the magic book. They had to know that they had to give me their grade because I know they didn't like to write. So I devised a lot of strategies. Uh, like, for example, when they got their grade, they had to give me a persuasive essay. And they told me how nice I was, how beautiful I was. I mention that because I like being sort of boastful, but I give all credit unto God because I had to pray over those students because some of them were not so nice. And, they wanted to do, but then there was some that was so wonderful. Just like the little boy who came from Sidwell Friends. And when I gave him that syllabus, he had failed English already. He comes to me and he looks at me, and I was dressed in my African regala that day. And he said, I'm not going to do this. I said, that's okay, dear, because I had a magic name for them. Deer was the one with the antlers.
Okay.
So he said he wasn't going to do that. I said, that's all right. Your father will pay the $57,000 for you to get to get that grade. And they don't put the names of the teachers who teach them because everything in this country is a little sly. They have words that they use and things that they say that are not true. And, you know, a lot of people, I look at corrupt crimes and everything like that on TV, and I see what the people are doing, and I really think we can do better. And hope, like I said, springs eternal in the human heart. And as long as you can hope, you can always get whatever you want. This universe will give it to you because of the God's hope.
Well, no, exactly. So, what then makes Pagasa for America, right, different from other books then that discuss American society or identity or community? I mean, what do you think makes it different? I think personally, I think it sounds as if it literally is full of hope, right? So, is that right?
Repeat that.
So what makes Pagasa for America different from other books that discuss American society or identity or anything to do with community, really? But what do you think the standout part of it is?
I think the standout parts is that I discovered people that I had never heard of, and I'm an avid reader, as I said before. Like I discovered Charles Drew, and his daughter gave me an award one time for an essay contest, Charlene Drew Jobs, and I discovered that when you erase people from history, when you take everything from them, that this book had to be named Pagasa because if we don't have hope, in one of the poetry books, I wrote a poem called Where Does the Negro Grow? And I spelled it incorrectly. I put NE-GROW. And I said he grows nowhere because he's been animalized. He has been, debased. He's been denigrated. So what can you do? I said he just works and struggles to live another day. That's no way for a human being to live.
Mm.
And I just see the beauty in mankind. And by the way, every English teacher knows the basic plots of English. Man versus nature. We just saw that recently. We saw a very, very bad storm.
Mm.
And nobody was expecting it because in January, everything was mild. And so about the middle of January, here comes a strange man versus nature. And nature almost got us. Then there's man versus himself when he has no pride, no hope. Then there's man versus another man in society, like two men fighting in a fight. And the other one, I forget, I can't think of it right now. But so we must do a little better. This world wasn't created for the savagery. It is now witnessing. And it's not just now. Mutability is something that changes every year, but it seems to get more rotten. People are forgetting each other now. You see them walking around with a phone in their hands. They're not talking. They're not communicating. And I think dialogue is very, very good. So Pagasa, to me, was just hope that I had for myself. And then I started looking on YouTube. I saw the creator of YouTube on television a few days ago because they had a lot of creators of these big, contests and all that stuff. And those young men, like Mark Zuckerberg and I forgot the creator of YouTube, they have done wondrous things. But unless we control these things, It will be like that little plot I wrote about the end. And who wants to see the goodness of people drown like the Titanic? By the way, my husband was born in 1912, the year of the sinking of the Titanic. So, with being married to such an older man, I learned so much from him, and I've learned from people all over the world, Africans, um, Pakistanians, Indians, like my teacher that went back when I was waiting to get my grade in literary criticism. So I think we're going to have a better world. If we don't, what hope do we have? So I started off just reading this little book, and everything. Would you hold on for a minute?
You can get that.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing a podcast. I'm on TV. Okay, thank you.
That's quite funny, isn't it? I'm doing a podcast. Go away.
Oh, that was someone special.
Right. Okay. That's allowed. That's allowed then. Yeah. I mean,
Life is beautiful. Let's live it. Let's stop hating each other. Your skin is white, mine is black. Hey, 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 I'm sorry about that, but we can all get along. We can
yeah,
speak.
sure.
We can have dialogue. And I do resent the fact that a lot of people don't know John Morton Fenty. Have you ever heard of him?
I'm afraid no, I haven't.
Well, he was the longest practiced lawyer in the United States of America. It's so much that YouTube giving us now. And Wikipedia, I can't even say it now.
Wikipedia, that's the one.
But that man has done a lot because a lot of the information that I did get, I got from Wikipedia. And guess what? Wikipedia or whatever. Guess what? I also went back and just learned a lot from there. And I spoke for the people who had died and gone on. Because I said, why don't you know me? Because read from the history book. We can all know that history is full of lies because it's all taught. I remember talking about Wallace, the guy who was a revolutionary back in the days of England, and how they fought and how he fought, and also Spartacus. And I was so glad that that little baby was free at the end, just one little baby. But life has to go on. And are we trying to destroy it? Are we trying to destroy our world?
Yeah, Joyce, I know what you mean. And, there are times when you think, we've been on this planet for so little time, maybe, and look at what's happening, and has that happened before? I don't know. But, I have to say that we're running out of time, unfortunately, Joyce. But what's the last thing that you'd like to tell our listeners before we have to wrap things up?
I would like to thank all the people in this world who come together to help me. I would like to thank God. I would like to thank my family, my son, I only have one, and his four sons who helped me when I was ill, is Marcus, Brandon, Cornell, and Darian, and their mother, Mrs. Angela Killebrew, and my sister, Mrs. Sheila Delaney. My sister has been my rock, my inspiration, and the one who took care of my son while I was struggling through school. I would like to thank John Kennedy. I would like to thank Lyndon Baines Johnson. I would like to give praise to Jesse Jackson because he said, never look down on a man unless you're willing to bring him up, hold him up. I would like to thank President President Lyndon Baines Johnson for what he said. He said, we shall overcome. And Barack Obama said, yes, we can. I would even like to thank Michelle Obama, who wrote me a personal letter when her mother was included in my book, Triumphant Queen Leah, as one of the queen mothers. And I would like to pay a special tribute to another queen mother, Mrs. Ann White. who has recently left us, and that has sort of put a little damper on my getting ready for this pod. And I would like to thank you, Chris, because I see your lovely face and see your kindness. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Joyce, you are such a lovely person. Honestly, you really are. And I hope that that's really, well, you really are, aren't you? You do think about people a lot. And I think it's very, very nice. Joyce, Joyce Louise Kilbrew, it has been absolutely wonderful to meet you today. And you know what? I'm walking out of here thinking, wow, there's a lot going on in the world. And I'm going to be that little bit nicer to people and think about them a bit more. So,
And one other thing, Chris, I must say this. I would like to thank the DC Teachers Credit Union for all the money that they loaned me to write all of these books. I think I wrote about 12.
yeah.
I'd like to thank the Navy Federal Credit Union for helping me and to think that those two companies are very great. I would like to thank and pray for all the people of this world, and especially Inspirational Ministries, which helps me a lot, and David Cirillo and Mike Murdoch, and also all the other preachers that I've listened to, Joel Osteen and everything like that. And I'd like to thank you for having me here. Thank you so much, Chris.
Not a problem, Joyce. It's been lovely to talk to you. So don't forget, people, Pagasa for America, Our Native Land, the USA, by Joyce Louise Kilbrew. And the other 11 books that you've written as well, Joyce, right?
What you say?
And the other 11 books that you've written as well.
Because I love to write and I love to make students write. And they will tell you I wasn't that easy. And I want to apologize to them because they had to do the right thing. And that's the contest. And I want to thank the ambassador of Kuwait and the country of Kuwait because they were very sorry to hear about a bomb or something starting there. Because the ambassador, Dr. Mohammed El Sabah, and the other people, Eric, who came to the school to, indoctrinate me to what they were doing. And I would just like to see people do a little bit better, the Arabs and all the people of the earth to do a little bit better. And I would like to thank Minister Evans, who wrote a book with MLK Academy. That's my husband's school, private school that he established for me, who wrote that people are waiting for a kind word. Minister Melvin Evans. Thank you, Chris, for having me.
No problem at all. Thanks again, and hopefully we'll meet again. But take care, everybody, and thank you. Lovely to meet you, Joyce. See you then.
Take care of yourself.
And you as well. Bye bye.
Thank you.